You're listening to the Breezy Moms podcast on digitalstreamradio.com.
Hey everyone, you're listening to the Breezy Moms podcast, a weekly show that chronicles the adventures of motherhood. I'm Candace. Now let's start the show. Hey guys.
Hey.
How are you?
Happy Sunday.
I know. Yeah, so you're going to be listening to this on Thursday, but it's actually Sunday right now. We're pre-recording. Right. We haven't done this in a while.
Yeah.
So I was all worried about
it's my fault.
Am I going to pretend like it's Thursday? But
there's no way. You can't get away with that.
You can't. So full disclosure, it's Sunday right now.
Yep.
It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon.
3 days after your last episode.
3 days. I know. So I was like, what are we going to talk about? But there's always stuff to talk about.
Course.
And later, I'm super excited because it's Sunday, we get to have one of my good friends from college is going to join us, but she's in California. And I'd been trying to get her on, and with the time difference, it was super hard. So this worked out really, really perfectly.
Yeah, because usually they're 3 hours ahead.
They're behind.
They're behind 3
behind
hours.
us.
So that means that when we're recording
they're
at
like
7:30,
just getting out of work. It's too early for them.
Either just getting out of work
or not out of work yet. So it has been. So it was really cool. It was like I thought, oh crap, what are we going to talk about on Sunday? And then I was like, oh, I can get Sharla to come on because I really wanted her to.
It's hard to try to get people, in sync with schedules and shows and stuff like that, especially when you have a specific time that your show starts and you're actually streaming live. And we're streaming live. Which we're not doing today, but it's very hard to be able to do that. Like, for example, even on our shows or other shows that I've done, we have a guest that calls all the way from Sweden. Mm-hmm. And when we're recording our show at 6:30, it's 1:30 in the morning there.
That's great.
And literally, he just gets up and he's got hair all over the place and he just starts looking at us. I'm like, I hope you're not videoing this. I hope this is not coming out anywhere, but we make it work.
Yeah. So
it's great stuff.
Sharla is going to be on a little bit later to talk about her kids, which is going to be awesome. And so let's just jump right into the show so we can get there.
So, Miss Candace, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How are your boys?
The boys are good.
Not that you would know, but
I know. Listen, don't be judging me, okay?
I am not judging. I'm just saying you haven't had your kids in like 4 days.
Okay.
Sort of, kind of.
Listen. I am a working mom. Okay. Let's not forget.
Well, you had a lot to do.
And I had a lot to do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so what you're referring to is the fact that I've had like evening, events or appointments all week. So from Tuesday to Sunday, we've been going every single night, and Saturday all day. And now Sunday I'm here that I have been gone, which means James comes from work and is on call right away. Which he usually is, because like when he walks in the door, I literally cannot handle another second.
You're ready.
Just like is the first moment that I just fall on the floor, or I just run upstairs and hide in the room and like decompress for a second. So I had a couple of things this week from like trainings. I have to do 18 hours of professional development each year for my license, for my daycare license. Mm-hmm. And so a couple PD opportunities came up, this week and on Saturday, and I'm on a board. So I had a board meeting and I record the show. And then, we went to see Kevin Hart on Friday night. So actually,
how was that?
It was amazing. It was amazing.
First of all, Kevin Hart is great and awesome, but you are a very busy lady. You are a member of a board. What kind of board?
I'm on the board. Yeah. So I'm on the board for Youth Continuum, which is an agency in New Haven that serves youth who are homeless. And not only in New Haven, but it's like the largest agency doing this work in Connecticut. And often, because we're on the Metro North train line, often youth who are homeless end up here in New Haven, like they have a friend or they know somebody or whatever, and it's easy for them to get here from New York on the city, or from Bridgeport or
Hartford now, because there's a new line.
Exactly. So we have an outreach center right in Fairhaven that it's like an outreach and drop-in. So if anyone needs support and someone sort of directs them, they can come to the drop-in center and, get on their way to getting support. And they have different tiers of support, from, being able to stay there right there at the drop-in center to, we have group homes, we have what's kind of like an assisted living. It's an apartment that's for them, but we help pay for it, or the state helps pay for it, and they have a small portion. So there's a whole continuum of services that someone between the ages of 18 and 24 can receive from this agency. So,
oh wow,
I just joined I haven't been on a full year yet, and it's just been really interesting and exciting. One, to be out in sort of this sort of professional group again, since I'd been home for so long and away from that way that people talk in in like a consultant professional kind of space. They don't say potty, they don't say poop, like those sort of things. So it was nice. It was a nice way to sort of remember that I used to be that person. Like I used to be able to have grown up conversations. And then also to get involved with this particular organization that's local in my community doing this kind of work was just exciting and encouraging. And then the other thing is that there's a huge percentage of the homeless youth in our state, and typically tend to be in the LGBT community and have been kicked out of their homes. And so there's also a lot of work that the agency, like a few people in the agency, are working towards like specific support for youth in the LGBT community who need, the extra support. And it's a huge deal to have a youth focused homeless anti-homeless agency, because typically people in that age group don't feel safe or comfortable or aren't safe or comfortable in an adult shelter.
And, not only that, the mere fact of being a member of the LGBT community and being kicked out of your home, a lot more often than not, this happens a lot younger than 18. So sometimes these children cannot resort to these types of services that are available to them because it's 18 plus.
Right.
And, what parents don't realize that is when you do this, you kick your child out for being gay or lesbian or transgender or whatever your child identifies as. Often these youth specifically in the LGBT community turn to other things to find a place to stay,
and
whether
that's
them
in a precarious situation.
Prostitution, sleeping in the street, drugs, and it ends up being. You end up actually putting your child through something that, would have been a lot easier if they could have just stayed at home and had to deal with, the issues and the dynamics of family.
Right. Yeah. You put them into a dangerous situation instead of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's how you were feeling.
It's really hard. And like, for example, we had a conversation. Actually, you were part of that episode. You joined us, for Gay Talk 2.0. When we had Dragon Dads on, and you were on that show, and we were specifically talking to two fathers who are part of this organization called Dragon Dads, and they are ex-Mormon men who went against their faith to love and nurture their LGBTQ children. And what a lot of people don't realize that in the state of Utah, a lot of the laws that are in place, for example, if you kick your child out and he's 15 and now your child is, out and about trying to find a place to sleep, if he goes to the agency, they allow the child to stay there for the day. And then at the end of the night, they hand them a sleeping bag and a pillow and say, good luck. Because the laws there don't allow for children to be housed in housing or in agencies that will afford them a place to stay when they have nowhere to go. The other problem that they have too as well is that when parents
it's almost like they want them to leave the state.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of these kids end up in California, end up in cities like LA and San Diego and things like that, because it's close proximity, but it also affords them a lot more opportunities. The other thing too is that it is illegal for any other adult to house a child who's underage without the consent of the parent.
Oh, wow.
And when a child gets kicked out of their house for being gay, they can't get consent. And then if you're a person who's out of the goodwill of your heart want to house children in your house, you can actually get arrested for doing so. So really and
they probably
the odds are stacked against youth trying to just get by.
Yeah, just live their life.
So the fact that, we have agencies in our cities or in cities around our country that are willing to help and want to and are looking for ways to correct that, I think it's amazing. Mm-hmm. So thank you for what you do.
No, thanks. I don't do a ton. But
doesn't matter. Any little bit, coming together and having discussions of what can we do is usually the best way to start anything.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So that has been really a really cool thing. And we were off for the summer. We don't do board meetings in the summer. So now it's sort of picked back up again in the fall. And so as things come up, I'll share them with you or people are interested in finding out how that they can support Youth Continuum. We can always use all kinds of support. We also have at the drop-in center, you can always drop off supplies of anything you think you might need, especially personal hygiene supplies,
toothpaste, toothbrush,
pads, tampons, like those kinds of things that people who are homeless don't have access to regularly.
Oh, she's got a phone call.
That's terrible, but it's a scam. So the phone declined it on its own. Sorry, that doesn't matter, but I didn't know my phone could do that. If it looks like a scam, the phone just will hang up on it. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Google Google.
So James has been doing a lot with the boys.
Yes, James has been doing a lot with the boys, which has been really great. And funny thing, he sent me a text yesterday when I was in the training. He came, I guess he walked into the kitchen and says, "Oh, Emery, are you still awake?" And Lincoln says, "Oh, he's like, Dad, I don't think you know how to take care of kids. That's why Emery is still awake. Like, mommy puts him to sleep in his bed. He only sleeps in his room." And I was like, oh, snap, burn.
Burn. Daddy got burned.
And so it's weird because I think they definitely have a great time with him. And it's actually funny because Kevin Hart talks about the weight of being dad and being the fun parent, right? He's got this really funny bit about kids they're wound up all day and they're just waiting at the door for daddy because they're going to like jump on his neck and it's just going to be so much fun, right? So he has a lot of fun with them, but I think that Lincoln probably distinguishes those hard parenting things like saying no more gum, or like it's time to go to sleep because it's nap time. Like I think he distinguishes the fun from that, which then sucks for me because I only care about me. That they think that I'm no fun and I'm the like hard. It makes me look like a drill sergeant.
But you're a mom.
I know.
And you have to be. You have to be able to do what you got to do and still come across as nurturing, loving, and fun. And sometimes that's hard to do, which is why dads, they have it easy. I think.
Yeah. So,
not that I would know.
I mean, I don't want to be the bad parent, like the one that the kids think is the bad parent, but I guess everybody's got to roll because I'm tired and I don't want them jumping on my neck, and they know they can't jump on my neck.
I'll tell you this much. That's men are at fault for that. For eons and eons, they've always said that a woman's place is in the house. So then, deal with that. You want to leave women at home and take care of kids, and they're going to come across as she's the one you don't fuck with.
Well, that's actually, I mean, the way that it ends up, I thought what you were going to say is that now you want to be home, because now dads want to be home.
Yeah.
Especially millennial dads, I think, are way more interested in being like wearing I feel like you'll see a millennial dad wear an ergo, like a baby carrier, way before you'll see a baby boomer dad or
someone even from
a Gen X, like a Gen X was my mom's generation. I feel like I would never see a Gen X man wearing a baby carrier.
Yeah.
my friend's husband, who was probably Gen X, he didn't even want to wear the baby bag. Like, he got his own baby bag that had like army fatigue on it. Like, he was like, I'll wear this messenger bag. And then he refused to wear the baby carrier. And you could see that he's like trying to hold the messenger bag, and the baby is all like, he needed a baby carrier. He's like, no, I got it. Cookie would never.
And you're right. You can see that transition, as generations keep going, and I think that has a lot to do with kids saying, oh, when I grow up and I have my kids, I'm going to be different.
Yeah.
And then every generation, something different comes along. Not much, but little by little, you keep assimilating all those differences that have grown out of what you thought you would never put your kids through. And so now you get to the point where, fathers, you're right. You have fathers staying at home, mothers going out into the workforce. And it's not something that was common 30, 40, 50 years ago.
No.
And
probably even just 30.
So
just 20.
The whole thing about, moms being seen as...
Well, so before dads were the disciplinarian, like mom's home with the kids all day and they're acting wild and she's like, wait till dad gets home. Like, wait, and you're like, your father's gonna, and like that was the threat. And I feel like now the threat is I'm going to call mom. Like that has become...
That's evil.
Evil. Because he's fun dad. And I always hear him, he goes, oh, go ask your mom if you can have the candy. And I was like, no. You make a decision about the candy, okay? And you know what decision you're supposed to make, so I better not hear you say, yes, you can have the candy. But, I think, in all jokes aside, he is doing a great job, and I like to just like moonwalk out of the room when I can. And I think I've said before, sometimes I hear what sounds like insanity going on, but I try really hard not to get involved because like you work it out.
You got to let it play out.
You let it play out and you work it out. And also, I mean, again, he's been awesome this week and he's had the kids every night, but there's got to come to a point where like that's not a big deal. Like nobody applauds me when I have the kids every day, all day, every night. It's 1 week
out of an entire year. So, he'll survive.
So he'll survive. He will survive, and he has been surviving, and he's been killing it. So,
but you mentioned in somewhere along the line in this conversation, you said something about Kevin Hart.
Oh,
Let's talk about that.
So we went to see Kevin Hart at the Oakdale Theater. Have you ever been there?
Yeah, it's a nice theater, actually.
So it's a nice theater, and I'd never been there, so I didn't even know what to expect.
It's one of our more intimate spaces, but yet still big enough to...
big.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not so intimate. We had nosebleed seats, and so I watched him on the screen the whole time. So, like, I could see his little body.
He is tiny.
I could see his little body.
What is he, like?
5'2".
Yeah, he's tiny.
5'2". And
he's like 6-7 inches shorter than me.
Yeah.
He's a small man.
He's small. So there's a point where he took off his sweatshirt, like he was getting hot and he took off his sweatshirt and everybody started going, woo, like, and he goes, shut up, ladies. I'm 5'2". Stop it. I know you're not paying me no mind. So yeah, he's tiny, but I think anybody who was up there, I wouldn't really be able to see, the facial expressions and that sort of stuff. But the venue was cool. They're very, very strict about no cell phones.
Yep.
You can get kicked out, like phone confiscated and kicked out, no refund.
Oh, honey, you're going to kick me out, but you think you're confiscating my phone? I will be literally, you're going to have to roll me out of that place with my phone being detached from my hand because I'll be swinging. My phone is my life. Oh my work, everything, like literally for the show, all my notes, everything is in this phone. We're fighting.
We're fighting.
I'm getting arrested.
Oh my God. So the venue was cool. The phone thing is cool. It was interesting because even I don't realize always, but I probably do have a phone addiction, but my whole life is kind of social media-y. And just this idea that I was going to have to put the phone away and not be able to look at it for 2 hours, I was feeling a little anxiety. And then I was like, I can do this. And my phone rang because it didn't it buzzed, like it vibrated. And I was like, it's okay. And then I was like, whoa, the kids are at the house with someone, like maybe it's the kids. And I let it go and then it rang twice. And I was like, James, a double ring. Oh my God, it could be something.
But I don't get, all right. So for concert places, it is 2018, about to be 2019. There's no need for you to prohibit people from using electronics at this point. You just can't really do that logistically anymore.
Well, they did.
Because everybody, and I can guarantee, I saw videos online.
Really?
I saw videos online of Kevin Hart. So they can sit there and
he lets people do it at the end. You can pull out your phone at the end. He's like, okay, now everybody can pull out their phone. But people were getting kicked out. They look like Secret Service in there, and they're like flashing the light from across the room. They're like, her, number 17, row B, number 7. I was like, what's going on?
No, I just think that from a logistical perspective, it's just, you're not bringing a bulky camera. Everybody has, I have 2 phones. Look, I have the Gay Talk phone here, or what we call the Gay Talk phone, the bat phone. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, my other phone. And, it's logistically nowadays, it's just what people do. They want to be able to document every second of every all their lives. Like, if you are at a concert, I want to be able to show my friends I'm at a concert. And, the only thing that really comes to mind is from a copyright or proprietary content perspective, and where they don't want that stuff out there, but you can't logistically monitor that anymore.
They're trying,
but in doing so, they really just not only ruin it for you or for anyone else, but think about a whole group of people in one section, right? Whip out their phones, and then all of a sudden they're trying to get all of those people out of that section and kick them out, and everyone else around them has to be, impacted by that. It's just stupid to me, if you ask me.
Well, it doesn't seem to play out that way. Because it seems like everybody is trying really hard not to break the rule, and that maybe you have a couple people who are like, they won't see me, I'll just check it, right? And then you have a couple other people who maybe wanted to check, maybe their kids are at home or whatever, but it doesn't seem like a group is like, okay, they can't kick us all out. You know what I mean? It's the other thing though is that it forced me to put away my phone and not look at it, so that I could be present and appreciate being there with James, being there with other people, it's a thing that seems like it's all about prohibiting you from using your phone, but it also reminds you to be in the moment and enjoy the friggin' show without somebody else. Imagine you're behind someone who is recording.
This is being part of the moment for everyone nowadays. Do you know what I'm saying? Having evidence that you were somewhere is also part of the moment.
Well, they let you use your phone we did take a picture before we went into the theater, so you can use it in the open area. You just can't use it in the theater where the seats are.
They suck. I'm sorry.
Anyway, I don't care that much. I don't go there that often.
I'm telling you.
It didn't seem like that big of a deal, except for the fact that my kids were at home, and so I was worried. But it wasn't even my kids. It was my sister who was double calling me. Well,
see, that's when you get an Apple Watch or a watch of some sort where the text message can come through and you can literally go like this and be like, oh, the kids are fine, or something happened, or...
Are Apple Watches affordable yet? Yeah. Or are they still $700?
No, the cheapest model is $349 for the sports watch. Yeah, and you can get a band. I bought my band for $15 on Amazon, and I've had the first series. watch.
$350 is a lot of money for.
It's a lot of money, but when you think about people spending money on Rolexes, etc., it's really
okay. Those aren't my 2 options.
Oh, I know. There's more watches out there in the world. I'm just saying that technology. If you want the technology, you gotta pay.
Yes, that's true.
But there is relatively cheaper models than having to pay. For God's sake, they had the rose gold one for $10,000. Remember that one? When they first came out with the Apple Watch? I'd hate to be that person now looking at, Series 4 and be like, why did I spend $10,000 on this?
Well, because then you had it then, right?
Exactly.
Those people don't care about that thing if they're dropping $10,000 on a watch.
I'm an Apple boy. I have a Mac behind me, a Mac in front of me, a Mac over there, where your friend and guest will be joining us soon. I have iPhones and Apple TVs and blah, blah, blah. But I had a friend that asked me, so which watch do you have? And I'm like, oh, the first one that came out. He was like, dude, you're not going to get the new one? I was like, no, this one works perfectly fine. Yeah. It's until the screen cracks and bleeds and cuts me, it's not coming off my wrist.
Right? I hear you.
Because that was $349.
I know. Well, that's why I don't buy those kinds of things anymore. We used to buy fancy phones when they were super expensive, and I don't know when it happened, but I was just like, I just need a phone that works. That's all.
For me, the game changer was the house. When I got the house, having the latest phone and the latest devices no longer became a big priority for me.
Maybe that was
because I have ceiling tiles that need to get put in, painting that needs to get done.
Windows need to be replaced, furnace needs to be replaced,
that
air
fake
conditioner.
faux window.
That's not a real window?
No. Do you see the outside window? So just so that you guys know what we're describing. So in my studio downstairs, I have a very big space where the studio is, and it's basically part of the basement, but it's finished. They have those small, like, I would say 2 by maybe 12 windows that you sort of kind of pull out to open. But in front of that window, they built an actual window casing and put a window in it. So I have to pull the window down to be able to open the actual window.
Oh, got it.
It's faux. It's fake. So
But it does lead to outside.
Well, the outside window does.
Okay.
This one serves nothing. So I'm pulling that sucker down. I'm going to put some sheetrock up and just call it a day and put some paint on it.
Okay.
It's done. I'm tired of looking at that thing. It's just horrible. But anyway, so you were saying.
So where were we? So we talked about Kevin Hart. Oh, so the other thing I'll say about Kevin Hart, which was pretty cool, is I didn't realize that this was his big tour. Like, he's on a big tour right now, the Irresponsible tour, because I was like, oh, it's going to be in the Oakdale.
I think they're actually going to do one of the final ones that he's doing. So, he does this. He starts off, and this goes on for months.
Yeah.
And so by the end of that tour, he's been doing the same jokes over and over again that he's got them perfected to a science.
So they'll do the recording.
They'll do the recording of the actual
DVD.
HBO special.
Right.
So
that's probably also why they don't want people recording it, right? And leaking that stuff. I will say that a lot of the jokes we heard already, so I don't know if those are like, I don't know.
Classics.
I'll see what happens when I see the HBO special.
But you also have classics. Like when you think of like Adele Givens is one of my favorite comics. And there are 2 jokes that she does that absolutely get me in stitches no matter when she says them or what venue she's in. That is her tic-tac joke and her joke about Jenny Craig. They're hysterical. She actually did the Jenny Craig one during the Queens of Comedy.
Oh, okay.
It was hysterical. So those 2 jokes get me dying every single time. They're classic jokes that she's known for. So if she goes on a stage,
she's telling those jokes,
and she doesn't tell those jokes, there's going to be rioting.
Right.
So I'm just letting you know.
Yeah. Well, he was impressive and it was cool. And I say that I didn't realize it was the big tour because we were in Wallingford. And so it was funny because he opened up by saying, I said this was a big tour and we were going to go everywhere. And when I said, have we been everywhere in Connecticut? He's like, oh, what's this place? The Oakdale in Wallingford? Is that how you say it? And so everybody started laughing and clapping. But just his idea that when I said I was going to go everywhere, I meant I was going to go everywhere. So this is his big show that is, in all the big theater, in all the big stadiums, but also in this spot. And I realize now that, one, it was super easy for us to go to. I think it took us 38 minutes from the time I looked at my watch when we were walking out of our seat until we got into our house. Was like 40 minutes
it's
total.
Not bad.
It was amazing.
Yep.
So the access to that place was really good for us. And then it's also, even though it's in Wallingford and like, what the hell is Wallingford? It's also pretty close to Hartford and New Haven and Bridgeport. Like, you could get there fairly easily.
It's very centralized between the 3 major cities in Connecticut.
And we got tickets early because James suggested it early. So our tickets were like $65. I mean, it was amazing. It was a very cool way to see like a big fancy show. So
were they serving alcoholic beverages? Oh, good. Because I would never be able to go to a venue without a drink. I'm just like,
I had a beer. They were serving. We wouldn't stand. The bar lines were super long, but the lines to go, it looks like a coffee shop, like a coffee counter, but they had a couple beer options and a couple wine options. So we just went on the coffee line. We're like, what do you have? Oh, I'll have a Heineken.
Yeah, I have my alcoholic bodysuit.
What does that mean?
It's a vest that you put under your shirt. And it just, I'm already a fat boy, so it just makes me look a little bit fatter. And then it's got alcohol in it. And you just whip out the little thing and just so, there you go. Can I get some
when
juice?
They pat you down, they think you're just like fluffy?
Yeah. It's like, this one's fluffy.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I usually wear that one when I go on cruises.
Okay.
Because when you're going out into other port areas and stuff and you're trying to buy alcohol, you can buy it, but when you check in, they take it and store it for you, and you can't have it while you're on the ship. And I'm like, screw this. I'm like filling the bodysuit.
So you buy it on the island and
vodka,
fill it in the
rum.
Oh my God.
And then I walk in, and sometimes I'll do like a bottled water and stuff. But sometimes they'll check those.
Yeah.
So
because they know.
Yeah.
I've never been on a cruise, so I don't know anything about that. But anyway, all of that was to say that the boys are good. Yeah, I don't have any huge, I'm trying to think of something that they've done in the last 3 days. They haven't done anything except Emery is really fighting naps, so he's often falling asleep with food in his hand at the
while
table.
He's sitting down. It's hysterical.
He just did it today at lunchtime. He's just a mess, a hot mess.
And what's worse is that you take pictures and then you post them. When this kid grows up, he's
you're gonna make my life hard,
evil, Mommy, why'd you do this to me?
If you're gonna make my life hard, I'm gonna laugh at you. It's just fair.
I just think that, nowadays that's just something that mothers do, right? They just capture these moments, these somewhat embarrassing moments for them, but they're not embarrassing yet because they don't even know that they're happening.
And even later, I mean, I guess if I'm still doing this to him when he's 12 or he's 15, but you can be embarrassed by something you did at 2.
Yeah, I know.
So
it's just funny.
It is funny, and it helps me remember because I look back at pictures like that I took when he was 1 or when he was little or when Lincoln was a lot younger, and it helps parents to remember. You forget. It's like you forget the hardest things you usually forget. And so having these little snapshot memories, I feel like I don't see a ton of pictures of myself from when I was little. I don't know where the albums are or, the pictures are all disintegrating. So it's nice to be able to do this. I mean, if Google shuts down, I'm screwed. But
well, that's why I have oh my God, I think 9 different hard drives.
Yeah, I'm not there
all
yet.
over. Yeah.
I'm not there yet, but eventually we'll start backing up something somewhere. Anyway, I think we should bring Sharla on.
I think so too.
Okay.
So you've got a friend coming.
Yeah. So Sharla has joined us again. She's joining us from California. She lives in Berkeley, so it's awesome to be able to get to talk to her on a Sunday afternoon. And she's a mom. She's been married for a few years. She's a mom of a 12-year-old and now a 10-month-old, which we were laughing about earlier, way to start all the way over.
Right.
So I asked her to come on and talk about momming and, she also went to Tufts. So my roster of Tufts, of jumbos who's been on the show is constantly growing. I love it. So anyway, Sharla, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Candace. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for waiting patiently as we
put her through the the pain of listening through the first half of the show.
I know. But anyway,
you guys are funny.
Thank you.
We try. I try to egg her on and get her going.
I see.
That's true. That is true. So Sharla, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, let's see. You mentioned lots of things, Candace. I went to school with you. That was really fun. I know we've had some experiences, many of which should never be repeated on air.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
I definitely had my wild days, but let's see. I'm now living in Berkeley, a block from my childhood home.
Wow.
And I have 2 kids.
Are you near your mom?
One is... I'm sorry, what?
Do you live near your mom? I remember your mom.
No, my mom lives in Oakland, actually, and it's great because she's close by, and it's one of the reasons I came back here. I came back home. I grew up in California. I love it here. It's always sunny, except for when it rains.
Which is not often.
And,
or when you have forest fires.
And people really act crazy when it rains here. They're like, oh my gosh, the world is ending. School gets canceled for major rainstorms.
Oh my
it's
God.
Intense.
Are you serious?
I lived in Boston. They don't cancel school for hardly anything.
Right.
but it's great to be here close to my family, which is nice. And I have a 12-year-old who recently turned 12 and puts me through the ringer. She really she's something else.
Is 12 6th grade?
12's hard.
Is it 6th grade or 7th grade?
She's in the 7th grade, and she got caught the other day playing spin the bottle at school.
What?
So
First of all, who's got time to play spin the bottle at school?
First of all, I think it's a rite of passage. I played spin the bottle when I was young.
At school?
You'd be surprised.
At school?
Oh my God.
This is why I'm not a parent.
Oh my God.
It's intense. And my dad, when I told him I was having another baby, he's like, oh, that's great. You're going to have a toddler and you're going to have a teenager at the same time. He's like, I'd expect about the same level of behavior from both children.
Well, way to go, Dad.
I never thought about that, but that's a great description.
Yes. I was like, hey, will you come and watch my babies? He's like, no, I'm old now. He used to come and watch Malia all the time when she was small, but he's like, I'm not doing that anymore. He's like, tell me when she's one, when she's like done with all her like real crazy, like, baby stuff, and I'll come out and visit.
That's hilarious. He's like, I'll come and visit. You can't leave, but I'll be there.
Right.
That is too funny.
But I really started all over again, like you said. So this is, like you mentioned in the beginning of your show, I've forgotten all the hard stuff. Mm-hmm. So the things that are hard for me this time, I'm like, did I go through this with Malia? And slowly but surely the memories will come back. I'm like, oh. And then I was telling my husband, I'm like, all these hard things that happened with Malia, like they're going to happen with Noelle. And he's like, I had never thought about it that way. But you think we're
too late. Too late now.
Together.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's biology intentionally fogging your mind so that you do it again.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Exactly.
And so Noelle is 10 months old.
Great. She's 10 months now, and she's really sweet. I love her. I love her so much. That's how we get duped into having more of them, because they're really, really cute.
I know. And we were talking earlier. So you're in California. You had 6 months maternity leave?
Oh yeah,
what
girl.
What kind of shit is this?
I took 6.5 months off. I took 7, but the baby was late, so I had 6.5 months total with her. And then my husband took off 6 weeks after I went back to work. So she went to daycare when she was 7.5 months old for the first time. It was wonderful.
That eventually will come our way. I've said this many times. Whenever California passes a law or starts doing something, they're like the poster child for things that are coming for the rest of the U.S.
Yeah, but I'm done having kids, so
what about me? It's going to suck for you, but for everybody else. I mean, when you think about it, you have developed nations like Canada where the mother gets 18 months of maternity leave, and the father gets up to 6 months. Mm-hmm. And the reason why they do that is because they believe in the importance of bonding with your child, specifically during the first 2 years of their life. It's very important. Not only that, it also affords the mother an opportunity to be able to bond with her child and breastfeed without having the need to pump, bottle, freeze. Mm-hmm. It really allows you to have an uninterrupted opportunity to bond with your child. Yeah. And I think that's important for human development anywhere.
Absolutely. That's what we all think. It's just we not.
Well, other countries seem to sort of kind of get it, except, the way we have this capitalist, unfortunately, the way we do our things here and how the insurance industry has really cemented itself in our way of that we run healthcare. It's just nearly impossible to see that happening sooner than later.
Yeah, it's shitty.
I really think it's a thing with like at work too, with your department. Like even my boss asking for an extra 2 weeks off. She's like, well, it's going to be unpaid and all this stuff. I'm like, these things are not important to me at this time. And that's not true for every person. But I happen to be in a place in my life where it's okay. I will just not do as many things, and I'm just going to be a little poorer, and I'll be fine. Mm-hmm. But
it's so weird when people come at you like that. You're like, I clearly know how much money is going to be or not be in the bank. Like, why are you more worried about my money
than me?
I mean, they also need to understand that there's a reason why they're not allowed to ask you questions regarding the reasons why you're staying out, right? You get a doctor's certification as to why you're staying home, and that's all they need. Mm-hmm. So the fact that she's even asking or he's even asking, he's probably breaking some sort of law.
Right.
Oh, so you can ask if it's more than the 6 months. 6 months is protected. When you ask for more, you have to qualify why you're asking. And you can ask for up to a year, apparently, with your job being held if your boss approves. So I could have asked for longer, but my boss was making a real stink about coverage at work. She's like, oh, no, well, I don't know how we're going to get covered. And then when I came back part-time, and she's like, I don't know, this might not work. I'm going to need you to check in with me in a month to make sure that we can keep doing this for the next month. I'm like, so what am I supposed to tell my daycare provider? And she was really being a hater. And she got fired. She's not.
Oh, see.
And you know what the worst part about that is? It's a woman.
It's a woman, yeah.
Unless she wasn't a parent, she wouldn't understand. But even then,
no.
I expect that kind of behavior from men. But a woman?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's hard. It's even harder. It's this woman who has no kids of her own, And a lot of times maybe it's jealousy. Like, I don't know, maybe, okay, I wanted to have kids and I didn't get a chance to,
right.
or, I prioritized my career and why couldn't you do the same?
Right.
And the thing is, I love my job and I love my career, but it doesn't mean that I don't also want to spend time with my kids.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Well, good for you. And
Thanks.
Good thing she's gone now, because she sounded toxic anyway.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
So you win.
Where's Bonquiqui when you need her?
Oh my God.
Like, oh my God, you. Oh my God. Seriously.
That character is hilarious.
So you have 2 children, one who we said is 10 months old. You have another one that's 12.
12?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we were
right.
going to talk about, we're basically here to talk about Malia. Tell us a little bit more about Malia.
Malia is such a unique girl. She's feisty. She's a feisty girl. She's a little Leo. She's one of the youngest kids in her class, but she's pint size. So she's always been in the 3rd% for weight and height.
Third.
And she's very 30%, 3rd percentile for weight and height. She's tiny.
God.
She's this tiny girl. She's like, even now, she's not even 80 pounds.
Wow.
She's in the 7th grade. She's short, but she's fierce.
Yeah.
And, she's always been this kind of tomboy. So most of her friends are boys. And she's got this one now really good girlfriend who is kind of gender neutral like her. She's always kind of not fit with the norm of what we expect to be girly, quotes. But, and it's actually posed a lot of problems for her, because at school people will say, are you a boy or a girl? So she dresses very gender neutral or on the border of boyish, or what people call boyish. And she's got it from both men and women, and young boys and young girls. But she could beat up any boy. She used to get this little boy who would always fight her at school, and the principal would do nothing about it. And finally I said, you tell kids to walk away so many times, but if they keep getting harassed, I said, if that boy harasses you again, I'm going to go to the principal and let her know the next time he touches you, you're going to beat his ass.
Right.
And the principal said, oh, well, we can't have that at the school. I said, I just want to let you know, I've told my child the next time he touches her that she can whoop his ass. And I got a phone call from the school saying that this little boy was crying in the office with ice because Malia beat his ass.
But that's amazing. I mean, speaking of, we just had we're still in the midst of this thing with Brett Kavanaugh, right? Which is just bringing up a lot of conversation about, or you're just hearing people out loud say things like, oh, it's just a little groping. Oh, boys will be boys. Like, just this idea that we're requiring our girls to endure this kind of harassment, which at that age, maybe it's not sexual harassment, but it's still harassment. And the idea that she's just supposed to look away or endure it. And then when she fucks him up and he's crying, now everybody's got to get called in. Like, why didn't you call us in to have a conversation with him to make him stop earlier? Like, it's just, it's incredible that that's the message that they think is appropriate to send to girls. Like, oh, they're just going to be boys. This is just how boys are. No. And if you stand up for yourself, then you're going to get in trouble.
One of the things that pissed me off the most about this whole Brett Kavanaugh thing and his nomination and things is the fact that you've got people out there that are saying, oh, he was 17 years old. He was young. They don't know what they're doing at that age. Why are you going to ruin someone's life for something that they did when they were young?
He knew exactly what he was doing at 17.
Of course.
17, hell
and
yeah.
He was drinking beer and all that stuff.
He was drinking more. If he's been talking about beer, that means he was drinking like gin and
gin and tonics,
and he was doing drugs. You know that when people release some information, it means it's the easiest thing.
So, to me, it's the notion that it's okay to do things when you're young because there's no accountability for what happens to you when you become an adult. That's bullshit.
Well, yes, it's bullshit because it's only valid for white men.
Of course.
Like, even white girls can't get away with doing bullshit at 17 and then become a woman who's trying to be somebody. They're going to bring up all that stuff from when you were 17.
Of course. And so it just really pissed me off when you see people make that argument, because for me, holding this man accountable for what he did when he was 17 years old is a very good message to send to our youth. Mm-hmm. Remember that what you do in your lifetime, whether you're young, old, or older, will follow you, and could stop you from getting a job. Right. For example, you know, a lot of people were thinking, oh, you know, she's being interrogated. They're bringing a prosecutor. It's like, these were not legal prosecutor. They weren't prosecuting him or her. He was applying for a job. Mm-hmm. You know, this was basically an interview for a job.
Right.
And
it's just for everybody to see.
For everybody to see. And so people were thinking, oh, you know, well, why should he be held accountable? Because, you know, it's not something that we're not in a court of law. This is not a trial and blah, blah, blah. No, it's not a trial. It's a job interview. And just like, you know, when you go to work and apply for work,
you don't tell them you were out boozing.
Yeah.
Like blind drunk.
And because you know that will eventually probably lead to them not selecting you as the candidate for that job. Mm-hmm. And anyway, what I was trying to say is that it is important that our youth understand that what you do in your youth will impact you for the rest of your life.
Just like I think that there's a campaign around getting young kids to realize that what they put on the internet also lives there forever. You know, you can't just be like, oh, I just said it or I just did that thing on Facebook. It's not real. You cannot get a job because of something you put on Facebook.
So, you know, this boy that keeps bothering Malia, and now she's defended herself, and you know, now teachers are coming to you and saying, hey, you know, this happened, or we need to address this. I'm like, no, I tried to address it
and we fixed
it. You failed to do that, and therefore she took matters into her own hands, and she's defending herself.
Yep.
So as a parent,
good for you.
How does that make you feel?
You know what? I'm all for it. I always think that, you know, you should go through the proper channels, that you should, you know, you should stand down, you should walk away, you should do the right thing, you should turn the other cheek, all this crap, right? But so much of that is such bullshit in the real world when we get into situations where, like you mentioned, Brett Kavanaugh, who's doing, you know, terrible things to women, and then backing it up and saying like, oh, well, you know, boys will be boys. I was only 17. All this kind of crap, right?
But there's a new thing from 1998. He wasn't 17 in 1998.
Exactly. So, and then thinking about my own child, and I'm like, at some point, she has to take matters into her own hands. So I'd rather raise a daughter who is fierce, can stand up for herself, who can really be at attention when needed. She knows when the difference between right and wrong, and she can walk away in the right situation. But in in a different situation, you know, she's got to be able to stand up for herself.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So you were talking a little bit about Malia at the beginning, and this idea that people are asking if she's a girl or if she's a boy because of the way that she dresses. That was part of why I wanted you to come on the show and talk about how you handle those questions of people, and how you handle the conversation with her. And I'll just say, because I think in this time where we're trying to be really open and inclusive of transgender people, I think that we can also make a leap because of some assumptions that we see. Like you said, the way she dresses makes people think that maybe she is a boy or wants to be a boy. And then we so quickly jump from what used to just be tomboy, right? I just like baggy pants, to now, oh, is she transgender? Should I call her something else? Does she go by, like, what's her chosen pronoun? Like, I feel like there's a point where we kind of overdo it in trying to be super inclusive. You then push something onto people who are not even asking for it. So I say all of that to say, so one, is this a situation where Malia might be transgender, or is it something different?
You know, I don't know how Malia is going to choose to identify. And I think that is really, I mean, even having another child and people asking why I didn't find out the sex of my baby. And people would ask, you know, like, what's the gender of your baby? I'm like, you don't know the gender of your baby. You know the sex of your baby. You know if it's a boy or a girl, which I decided not to find out. But even for Malia, who's 12 at this point, I don't know. I don't know what she's going to choose to identify, how she's going to choose to identify. What I do know is that she needs the support to feel like she can be whoever she wants to be. Okay. So at this particular moment in her life, she wants to wear what we would call boys' clothes. Now, that's society sticks people in boxes based on boys and girls' clothes. And I remember, and Candace, I don't know if you remember this, but when I was a kid, there was the kids section. It wasn't the boys and girls. There was no distinction between gender until you got to the junior section. Yeah. It was juniors, and then it was, you know, the teenage boys section, but there was nothing from a kids department, nothing was separate. Everything you got, overalls were for boys and girls.
Yeah.
Every color shirt was for boys and girls. And now we have this distinction starting as a babies, where we buy pink things for babies and blue things for baby girls and blue things for baby boys. And my daughter, Malia, she really is into expressing herself how she wants to. And
she's
a lot
like
of the reasons,
fly ass haircut, I'll tell you that.
Right. Well, thank you. And a lot of the reasons she wants to wear traditionally boys' clothes are because she says things like, the girl shorts are all up in my coochie. Like, right. Why would I want to wear girl shorts all up in my coochie? Or she'll be like, well, now she's starting to develop a little chest. She's like, I don't want to wear tight shirts because they show my chest.
Right.
She's like, I'll wear a sports bra, but I don't see the point in wearing all these tight clothes that are going to show my body. So to her, she doesn't necessarily need to feel the need to show her body. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't have the type of identity issues where she feels fat or skinny or whatever. Malia's like, she's an athletic build girl. She's really, she's muscular. She can do more push-ups than me. Man, she can do chin-ups, pull-ups more than adults can. So she's a gymnast. She's a really powerful young woman. And when I asked her about this idea of being transgender, we had to watch some videos on what is transgender, mm-hmm. what does it mean to be transgender, and what feelings does that invoke for you? And we watched some videos on it. I asked her, some leading identity questions, but I don't want to feel like I'm, like you were talking about, Candace, leading her to put her in a box, right. Saying, "Oh, are you a lesbian? Are you feeling like you want to be a man?" How am I supposed to know what she wants to do? Does she like boys? Does she like girls? I don't know. But my job, I feel, as my job as her parent is to make sure that she can express herself how she wants in the moment that she needs to express herself, as long as it's not harming someone and it's going to make her a productive member of society.
That's amazing.
One of the things that, and I love that we're having this conversation, because we do have a lot of these conversations on our show, mm-hmm. specifically surrounding transgender, gender non-conforming, non-binary. There's a lot of aspects of the LGBT community that a lot of people don't really understand, but non-gender, non-conforming, non-binary are one of the two upcoming identities within our umbrella that are the least understood. Mm-hmm. But you had mentioned earlier on in this conversation that you try to see people put people in a box, right? And that's the problem that we're having. That because we need to see everything black and white, and that everything needs to fit into this little box, when you have someone like Malia, who may want to be a woman, but doesn't want to necessarily conform to the ideals of what society says a woman should look like or a man should look like. She may not even be a lesbian. She may not be transgender. She just simply may be saying, I am not going to live my life based on your expectations. I have my own. So if I want to wear girls' clothing, I'm going to wear girls' clothing. If I want to wear heels tonight, I'm going to do it. If I want to wear flats or running shoes, I'm going to do that too. And I'm going to do it on my terms. And there's no way you or anyone else will tell me that what I'm doing is wrong. It's more of a power thing for them, right? It's them taking control of who they are and what their identity is. And so what I think you're doing right is that you are really taking the time to understand where she's coming from, or where she may not know she's going, and giving her the security of knowing that I don't care where you go. As long as you're not doing bad things, doing drugs, or hurting anyone, I will support you in your journey in finding yourself, whatever that person may be.
Exactly. And I don't want her to be thinking, oh, well, because I do this, I have to do that. Like you're saying, there's no box for her. And I think she's realizing that even as she's becoming more self-aware. She's like, and as she's coming into herself, she is really understanding. Whereas in elementary school, people would say, "Oh, well, you must be a boy," and she's saying, "Well, no, I'm a girl. I'm just wearing boys' clothes." Now she's like, "What business of it is yours about who I am?" She's like, "Who gives a damn?" Like, and then now, this whole thing with the pronouns, and she's like, "Oh, if they want to call me boy, I don't care. If they want to call me girl, I don't care." To me, she's like, "I don't care. Honestly, to me, that doesn't matter." All the things, I just want to be able to do all the things a boy could do and all the things a girl could do, regardless of my so-called gender.
Right.
She wants to be able to do anything. So she gets really upset when, for her, it's this identity piece where she's like, well, if I say that if I'm a girl and I'm only going to do girl, then I'm only going to do girl things. If I say I'm a boy, I'm only going to do boy things. She's like, I want to be a girl who can do anything. So
that's amazing. And at 12 years old, I mean, it's reasonable.
It's beautiful.
It's reasonable. So, I think sometimes we get caught up in the like grown up, research based, all the like grown up conversation. But I think about her, she's still 12. She's still only 12. How long has it been going on where there has been this sort of, question from the public, right? From people who are outside of you guys, about her. And when did she realize that people were treating her some way? You know what I mean?
I think this all started I think when she was about 7 or 8 years old. She started saying, I don't want to wear skirts. I don't want to wear this. I don't want to wear that. I don't want pink. I don't want purple in my wardrobe. I just want to have blues and greens and like reds and blacks and grays. And I said, okay, well, whatever. I've never been big on making her wear what she doesn't want to wear. I think that stuff is cute because I just do. I think it's cute. And I dressed her up like a little dolly when she was a baby. And she'd say, why'd you dress me up like that? I'm like, well, you couldn't tell me you didn't like that. And once you could, we didn't make you dress like that. So that was fine. But it's been for a long time. So she felt really awkward about it, I think, in elementary school. And I think it started with her wearing a uniform and you could pick to wear pants. And she's like, I just want to wear pants. She's like, skirts aren't practical. I can't play in a skirt. I can't do all these things in a skirt. I have to wear leggings underneath it anyway. So why won't I just wear pants?
Wow.
So for her, from a practical standpoint, wearing pants was much easier than wearing a skirt.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it just came along where she was like, I just like this style better. And she's like, I don't want to have long hair. I want to have short hair. I'm like, well, fine. To me, I feel like you should be able to express yourself how you want. And I think to her, I'm trying to send that message to her. So she's acutely aware of what it means to be herself. Mm-hmm. And I think that she comes up against a lot of opposition. Even now, less in middle school, I think there's a lot more acceptance. Also, we live in Berkeley. Right. This would be a totally different story if we lived in a different part of the country. But we live in Berkeley, California. This is a very accepting place. Even with it being accepting, there are still confines of people who want to put you in a box. Mm-hmm. And she still comes up against that kind of, I want to assign you a gender. I want to assign you a role. And I think that's hard for her. But at the same time, she's not feeling more sense of self where she can say, no, that's not me. Or no, I want to be this way. And I don't really know what that means for her going forward. Like she's not hit puberty yet. So that scares the hell out of me, but we talk about it all the time. I'm like, bring pads to school. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. But honestly, until she goes through that hormonal change, like, I don't even know from an identity standpoint. I feel like some kids really know. And I've asked her, do you really know? And she's like, no, I don't know. Mm-hmm. She's like, and, getting caught playing spin the bottle. I'm like, are you kissing boys? Are you kissing girls? She's like, I'm kissing boys and girls. Why not?
I love it.
It's amazing. Okay, so first of all, you're right? Being in California, I was actually going to mention this earlier, but you beat me to the punch. You live in a state that's very progressive. You live in a state that's very accepting in most parts of the state. Not all, but you're right. The situation would be very different. For example, let's say you happen to live, let's say, in a state like Alabama, which is one of the most unaccepting homophobic states in our union, right? To allow for that to actually proliferate. Help me out here.
Proliferate.
Thank you. To allow for that to actually come to be, to be able to have a child that can self-identify, it's just non-existent in states like Alabama. Mm-hmm. But I will say this, one of the most important support groups that she could ever have is that lives or that starts at home. And you, as a mother who clearly you understand this better than parents who have children that I have already identified that want to be, I'm this or I'm that. You are doing exactly what you need to be doing. You are supporting your child in a safe, environment at home from the beginning, you give her that will, that drive, that opportunity to be able to self-identify and say, what I'm doing is not wrong. I'm just simply trying to find myself. And my mother's giving me that opportunity and that vehicle at home, which is where most importantly it needs to start in, right? Because you have children that are in your daughter's situation that could end up being kicked out and out in the streets by their parents because they don't understand. And you've taken the time to do that. And I think that's one of the most important things that you'll ever do in your life as a mother and as a parent.
I agree. And there's so many asinine questions I get from.
That was my next question. How are you? How do you handle the idiots in this?
It's really challenging. It's really challenging, actually, because you want to remain diplomatic, right? And say, you know, this is how I've chosen to raise my child, and this is how you should raise your children. Really, honestly, if we're talking about raising like good
what people should be doing,
accept other people, right? Exactly. But to look at them, and you know, even some like I have some backward family, and they'll ask, you know, on both sides, my white and my black side, they'll ask me things like, well, you know, is she gonna be a boy one day, or is she gay? You know, what does that mean? I'm like, right now she's a girl who likes to dress like a boy, and she's happy with that, and so am I. You know, I'm just tell them, you know, this is really, or I tell them if they get real asinine, I'm like, it's really none of your damn business,
right?
Because really, it isn't, and it's like their opinion of her and is a removed family member is not going to matter, and they're not going to have an impact on her 20 years down the road.
That's right.
So I really try to answer those questions as diplomatically as possible and really explain, you know, and say, you know, she's who she is. Yeah. She is Malia.
Call
she's
her
my
Malia.
daughter. Exactly. Well, what is she? She's Malia, and she's a little girl, and she likes to dress like what you would call a boy, but really she's just who she is. It's who she is. She's dressing how she wants because it's her style. It's her style.
You know, having someone that's gender non-conforming, it helps to solidify two things. We're human. First of all, acknowledge me for that. I am a human. I am on this planet. I am here to share it with you. And the second thing is, just love me. You don't have to understand me. You don't have to understand whether I'm a boy, girl, or if I'm either. If I want to identify as they, them, all you need to be concerned with is I am a human being on this earth, sharing it with you, and all you need to do is just show me a little bit of compassion and love.
Right, exactly.
Anything else is secondary and not important. You know, and the fact that that's coming from home, you know, like you're literally providing that at home, that opportunity to know that she is loved and that she has the power and the authority to decide that on her own. It'll be the most important gift that you will ever give your child.
Thanks. That's exactly how I feel. And I'm really trying to raise her that way. And, you know, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I've told her, I said, you know, if you want to have an easier time and you want to just fit into a box, you can wear girly clothes. Because one time she asked me, she goes, wouldn't it just be easier if I wore skirts and dresses and stuff? I said, it would. It'd be easier for the world. It won't be easier for you, but it would be easier for the world to accept you because you'll fit into one of their little boxes, but you don't have to fit into a little box. You can do what you want to do, but it would, I'm not going to lie, it would be easier if you just did what society expected of you. That's the role of society to, you know, kind of make these little niches for people and so they feel comfortable. But if you want to be an outlier and you want to start to change the narrative, and this is what I was trying to talk to her about, you can change that narrative. It's equal. It should be equal for a boy, for a girl, for anyone, for someone gender non-conforming. You should be able to do what you want to do, regardless of how you dress, how you identify. So that's something really important we talk about in our house, just with each other, and just talking about, you know, the differences and then why you should accept and that anyone should be accepted. Right. And that goes for so many things besides just gender. Because we talk about other things where she'll have a judgment about someone, and I'm like, what? You wouldn't want someone to judge you for how you dress.
Oh, interesting.
You know? So it actually applies to other things where I'm like, well, you just made a judgment call on somebody, but you shouldn't do that. So it's a teaching moment for her. You know, it's a good teaching moment for her. It's hard. It's hard for me as the mom too. Cause I'm like, you know, I'm going shopping for my daughter and they're like, you know, I'm like with a friend. They're like, oh, why aren't you shopping in the girls department with me? I'm like, my child doesn't want to wear anything in the girls department.
Right.
So you know, sometimes
and she's
I do.
Still my daughter.
Right. she wants to wear baggy pants, and she asked me for gray sweats. That's not my fault, with no pink or green in them. It's not my fault that now I have to go to the boys section because all the girls' pants, they make them the same thing as the boys' pants, but they've got pink and green stripes down the side of them. Why do they need pink? Why does it need to have a pink and a green stripe on the side? You know, why couldn't it just be a pair of green sweats?
I remember in probably through maybe sophomore year in high school, I was wearing khakis and the 3-button polo shirts and like all stuff from the boys section, mostly because I was 5'9" when I was 10 and none of the girl pants hit my ankles. Right. So I had to I was wearing like a size 34 length when I was in junior high school.
So you're the reason why capris became a thing?
Maybe. No, those are floods. Anyway, whatever. I feel like capris came from Korea. Like South Koreans came. In my high school, that was the first time that I saw people wearing the capri pants, was this girl who was from South Korea. And I remember looking at her like, what the hell is she wearing? And then 2 seconds later, it was like capris everywhere.
It was the thing.
They're just fashion forward. They know more than we do. They lead the industry. They lead the industry.
And my
legit
daughter,
remember.
She'll watch these, like any of the Korean, like, you know, the music videos. She's like, oh yeah, that's the hottest, coolest thing.
Yeah, and the haircuts. Now that we say that, she's got like an anime haircut going on.
She does.
But
with her blonde hair.
Yeah. She's so super cute. She's so super cute. And I like every time I see the pictures, this is part of why I wanted to talk to you about this, because I will be like totally 100% honest. At different points over the last few years, I've seen pictures of her and I've had these same thoughts. Like, well, is she would she want to be a boy? Is she a boy? Is she telling people? But then I always see you say like, my daughter this, blah, blah, blah. And then I remember, so 2 things. One, I realize there's no reason for me to just call you and ask you this question, especially out of the blue. We don't talk that often. I don't see you that often. Like, what do I look like calling you after 6 years of graduation? Oh, but that thing about your kid,
Nosy.
You know, like it just didn't feel right. And it made me think like, why are people so ridiculous that they think it's an appropriate thing to just like come out of your face and ask some stupid question when you don't even know me anymore, or just a stranger in the street. Like, you're not asking this question because you care about me, which is not the case for me, right? But like for people in the street, you're not asking these questions because you care about me. You just want a quick answer right now so you can move on with your life and feel good about what you think you saw. And and that's not my job to help you.
I think the reason why they ask those questions is because they want to validate their insecurities.
Right.
And their doubts
and
as
then
to
they're going to
what's
walk
going
away
on over here and
move on. And so that's part of why I would have never asked you. And then you made a post. I think maybe someone must have said something to you and you were really angry, and you made this post on Facebook, and I was like, yes, now I have an answer, and ooh, go Sharla, right? Like,
yes.
And I was so impressed.
Questions. They get me every time.
So can I ask you a question? So
that's what the show is about, Tom.
Sure. Thanks. Obviously you are very, very accepting of your child and you're very supportive of your child, but usually, with parents, that's an evolutionary process. It wasn't always that way, right? It's what they usually say. Was there ever a moment for you in where you had to sort of kind of step back and say, okay, what am I doing? How am I going to handle this? Where can I go to find information? Did you do any of those things? And if you could, can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. That's a really good question, actually. So I remember actually when I got married, I really wanted my daughter to be a part of the wedding ceremony, and she didn't really say what she wanted. I wanted her to wear white, and she wasn't at the point now where when she goes out and she was going to wear something dressy, she wears a suit, and her grandparents bought her a tailored suit. But when at that age, it was, you know, the choices, she was like, well, I just want to wear something pants. So we went to this Indian boutique and we got what a young boy would wear to a wedding, which was, it's something kind of like a skirt with the pants underneath. And it was beaded. And even today she says, why'd you make me wear that dress like thing or dress up like that? And she gets really upset when she sees that picture. I'm like, well, you look so cute. And, you know, she's like, you made my hair in a half ponytail. And, you know, she was just, she was really upset about it. So, and you know, I told her, I was like, this is my day. And that's something I'm like, you picked that outfit. It's really funny because she looks back on that. But when we went to the store, she picked that outfit.
Right.
So
but
she was really mad at me now. But she was 7. And so she'd already started to form her opinions on what she wanted and what she was going to do.
And it was changed hard for me in the 5 years.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
And it's changed since then. Like we were, you know what I mean?
It's evolved.
It's evolved.
From an evolutionary process. Yeah, she's evolved. So it's I've had to evolve and adapt. But I remember when I bought all these cute like clothes for her, and you know, I'll shop and buy things on sale and buy several of them, and she's like, I don't want to wear any of those pink shirts. I don't want to wear any of those purple shirts, and I don't want to wear any of those skirts. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to go buy new stuff. And she's like, well, then I'll get it. I just don't want to wear it. So what started to happen was every time we'd go shopping, we'd just pick a different piece that was something she would pick out. So she started picking out all her own stuff because it was too hard for me to try to figure out what she wanted when she was evolving. So I had to evolve and allow her to be kind of the decision maker at this age where she could make decisions, but we don't always let our kids make those decisions.
Yeah.
We usually are still buying them things, which we still are because I mean, they don't have a job. I wish she had a job so she could help pay some bills. But you know, like that's a piece. And then also reaching out. I talk to my cousin a lot. My cousin, she's wonderful. She has always been, I wouldn't say gender neutral, but she's always been very LGBTQ forward. She's a lesbian herself, but she went through a similar kind of coming into womanhood, as you say, when she was in middle school. And she was like, you know, I kissed boys and girls. I was trying to figure out who I was. And I feel like this is something we all go through, but instead of having the ability to be gender neutral, when we were kids, just because of when we grew up, we were assigned to one or the other, and then we had to go through that process. And then it'd be awkward when we got older, like, oh, well, now I don't belong here anymore. So I mean, I've reached out to her, and I've reached out to, actually, my brother has a really good girlfriend. His ex-girlfriend from high school has gone through a transformation. She is now transgender man, and he's great. I talked to him, and he has a younger sister, and my brother and the sister are still very close friends, and she's been gender neutral forever. Since as long as I can remember her. She's had a short haircut. She's worn what we would call boys' clothes. So talking to her, and she's a good resource for Malia, and I'll ask her questions and just about the process. And she's given me a lot of good guidance, you know, just accept Malia for who she is. If people, I'm like, what do I do about these dumb questions people ask me? She's like, tell people it's none of their fucking business.
It's God honest truth. Were there any support groups or any type of agencies in your area that you may have turned to?
Because it sounds like you have people in your village who
are very supportive.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm asking these questions is because Malia is not alone. You're not alone as a parent in this world, possibly having children that are facing the same thing, or a mother that may be facing the same thing. And asking these types of questions and finding out what resources are available could be a good way for a mother that may be listening to this show to be able to do the same.
A parent. I have dads listen to the show.
Yeah. Or parents.
That, you know, I haven't reached out to any agencies or support groups. I've been really blessed to have people in my life because I have such a varied group of friends who really have provided a lot of different experiences. And I have such an accepting group of friends. My close friends all accept Malia for exactly who she is. They think that she's wonderful as the person she is. So I haven't had that. I haven't had the need to reach out. But as Malia gets older and maybe does start to identify and, you know, it continues to be in this area where she needs support, and we need to understand who she is without assigning her a specific category. I might need some of those resources. So I may be looking for them myself. Right. And when I do, you know, happy to come back and share them with you guys.
That's awesome.
I know, because it must get different. I mean, she's young now, right? She's preteen, but I imagine the things that come next. The teen years are hard for everybody, especially when you're, because we all go through a period of self-identify. Like, that's what being a teen is about. And having this added pressure, when you're trying to like this add-on that you're trying to figure out when people don't want you to figure that stuff out is tough.
How was her process? In the process of discovering herself, was it challenging for her, or does she have difficulties academically? How's she doing in school throughout this whole process? Because the reason why I ask is because for normal, right? I say normal in quotations, children who can identify and say, okay, well, I'm a boy, I'm a girl, and don't have all those extra things that you have to kind of sort out in your head or in your life, both at home and in society. It's fairly simple to just go to school and do what you need to do. But for someone who's really has all these added layers, it can really be stressful to the point where it can start affecting the child academically or socially. How is she doing in those two aspects?
Malia's always had a bit of a challenge in reading. And I think that started in school when she was really young, and she had a really terrible elementary school kindergarten teacher. It didn't really lay the foundation for her. And then as she grew older, I think this not having this foundation kind of has affected her throughout. And I don't know, that's actually something we haven't really talked about. Are these stresses of you being who you are, identifying as Malia, who doesn't fit into one of these gender specific boxes, has it affected your academics? She does tell me, though, that she feels pressure to be perfect. And I think that a lot of students, talking to other parents, a lot of students now, because it's so hard to, go to college, it's so hard to the competition's so fierce, they feel like they're really under a microscope and they have to do everything perfectly. And I really pride Malia on, telling her, hey, if you want to do X, then, you've got to make sure that these other things are done first. Like your homework has to be done before you can go out and play, or, those kinds of things. So I think she's doing the best that she can with what she's got. She does struggle a little bit academically. I'm not sure if that's because of her identity. And that's something from like a studied standpoint, I think should be studied. Actually, I think you're right, Tom, that is something I think I've seen as well from other kids, where if they have a lot of what I've learned are headwinds or adversities that are facing them as they're going through their life, that they're going to struggle academically, and it's going to harm them as far as what their potential is going into the future. And I don't want that to be Malia's case. Yeah. I want her to have every possibility and every door open to her. And I think for her, when people talk to her and when I talk to her and I say, and I've talked to her about this whole idea about would you want to be a boy? And she gets really upset and she goes, what's so good about being a woman? That's so hard for me as a woman who loves being a woman to explain to her. There's all these wonderful things about being a woman that you're on the precipice of understanding right now.
Right.
Like I was like, as a woman, I said, when one day you can understand what pleasure is as a woman, and we've talked about sex and all those things, and telling her, and I'm like, your body can do so many more things as a woman than a man's can do. You will have so much more pleasure out of your life in your sexual awakening than a man ever will. Like all these things that I'm explaining to her, I'm like, you can have children, or you could choose not to have children. That's a beautiful thing. It's your choice.
Men can't choose to have children.
No, exactly, at all. You could choose yes or no, but they can't choose at all. Like they can't have a baby. So I'm explaining all these things to her, and I was like, like we have a higher threshold for pain. In many ways, I would think we're stronger, even emotionally, than men are, because men are and it's a societal effect that they're not. A lot of men aren't taught to express their emotions.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's all these things that as a woman, I think we're so strong. And if I had to pick, if I could today look back and say, do I choose to be a man or a woman? I'd pick a woman every time.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I love it.
So I tell her these things, but I think it's so hard for her because she's like, well, why wouldn't a woman be allowed to do this? Or why do I need to take time off work if I was going to have a baby? Or why do, all these things that she's like, well, I couldn't do this. And why do men make more money than women? And all these things that are like from a societal standpoint, she's questioning all these things. And actually, you know what, Tom, you asked me a question about resources. One resource I have explored is my church. We have a really open and inclusive church. We're a part of a UCC, which is kind of a Unitarian church. Yeah. And it's First Congregational Church of Christ, and it's in Berkeley. Fantastic church. And it's a huge transgender community, a huge LGBT community. It's wonderful. So, I would say that the other parents and the other transgender people or the non-gender binary people, those are the people I've talked to in my community to like garner this information as well. Yeah. But I mean, I just want to support my daughter. I think that's the most important thing at this point.
That's all we can ask for. The last thing that I will ask you in closing is, do you think that there is sometimes we jump the gun, right? Like we're trying to be so inclusive of everyone. Again, like I said, we jump the gun and she just wants to wear pants and we're like, oh, is she transgender? Is there a point where you think that maybe we're talking about, not we, but you, her, and people around are talking about the LGBTQ aspect of what like deciding to wear pants all the time means, or like do we not have the luxury of pretending like we can ignore the fact that people are thinking about that and just let Malia live? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think we do jump the gun sometimes. And I think a lot of people will tell me too, like, oh, well, have you talked to Malia about X? Or do you know if she wants to be a boy or a girl? Or they'll say like, you know, Malia needs to make a decision, or you know, like as she gets older, she must know already what she wants to be. I'm like, how can she know that? She's just being who she is. Mm-hmm. And I think there is a lot of pressure externally, especially as right now we're in a culture that's trying to become more accepting. And sometimes with becoming more accepting, we start asking leading questions. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the leading questions, yeah, and they don't have a place in this particular situation. And I think there are some situations where kids really are like, I've watched some videos, and so has Malia, of these young kids who are, you know, 10, 11 years old, who are very convinced. They're young women who are like, I want to be a boy. I've always thought I was a boy. That's where I fit. And when I asked Malia, you know, how do you feel? She said, tell me, oh, I feel like I'm a girl. I'm like, okay. So I think, you know, I have to ask questions about how she feels, not about like who she is. Like, well, that's important. Can you make a decision?
Yeah.
Right.
It's important because you don't want to force someone at that age to make a decision as to who they should be, right? Mm-hmm. Or who they are right then and there, when they themselves don't understand all of the logistics of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And there's so much more to come. There's so many more. Oh. I'm not who I was when I was 18. I'm not who I was when I was 25. Like, we're all allowed to be on this evolutionary journey. And the fact that in a case like this, especially with young kids, we try to prevent them from going through the same growth journey that we've all gone through, because maybe theirs has another layer that we didn't have to deal with or we don't understand, is alarming and scary. But I will say, like Thomas said several times, you are really kicking ass, Sharla. You are really incredible at lots of things. But at this thing, I'll tell you from afar, because we actually haven't had this conversation before. And,
no, that's true.
And I will tell you that from afar, watching Malia grow over the last several years on Facebook, because, you know, you Facebook stalk people. I have been so impressed. I've been so impressed with the way that when you feel like it, you make these statements, but that they're not every day. So it doesn't seem to me like you feel a need to prove anything to anyone or to be the teacher for everyone. Like, you guys are just living your life, and you're managing your life and your child in the best way that you can support her. And so just like, hats off to you. I'm so proud of you.
Seriously.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you, Tom. Yeah. I'm going to need all the support I can get as, you know, we go through these transitions, as this teenager is really trying my nerves, I want to tell you.
I can't believe you have a like preteen. Like, I think you had her when we were graduating from college. And I can't imagine Lincoln being 12 right now. Like, I can't even imagine. So I'm super impressed with you for even having a kid that is that old.
Thank you. She did a lot of growing up with me in the first couple of years. So I tout her for that.
Yeah. You made me better. I love it. So thank you so much for joining us, and come back anytime. I mean, it would be great to get an update, or if anything comes up that you sort of learn about that you want to share with us, we would love to have you back.
Thanks, Candace. Thanks, Tom. I would love to let you know where Malia is in her journey too in a few years, when she stops trying my nerves.
If she made it to 15.
If she makes it past my nerves. Yeah. She's in trouble right now. So,
Oh my God, I love it.
Well, listen, trouble or not, I think that you're, like Candace said, you're kicking ass. You're doing all the right things, whether you know you are or not, from someone who is in the LGBTQ community and have lived all my life as a gay man and have seen many experiences with parents dealing with children. Situations like this would break them. And I think that you're holding strong, you're doing what you need to be doing, and you're doing the right things. And I believe Malia is very lucky to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on the show today, too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So we are going to move on.
So, again, thank you so much for joining us. We've got the rest of the show to talk about. I'm getting teary-eyed over here because, what I just experienced was absolutely amazing. So thank you for that. But go ahead.
Okay. So, because we've definitely gone over. But that's okay. It's a big, important topic, and one that I wanted to talk about because, again, at my age group, my friend band, most of us have younger kids, right? Like, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so Sharla is one of my very few friends who have a child who's definitely a lot older at 12. 12, I think another friend has a child who's 13. And so I don't know, I have no idea. And I also think that a lot of people in my age group, don't know what it's like to have to deal with those kind of big issues. Like, my biggest problem right now is Emery doesn't want to wear pants. And, and what's a problem for Lincoln? Lincoln, I don't know. Lincoln wants to pick out his own clothes now. Like, that's the biggest thing for me. I don't have any of these other kind of like big, they don't feel as big as this. And I thought it was really important to be able to, have this conversation out loud, especially for other people who might be wondering about this kind of thing, how you talk to people, and to know, one, that, like, make sure that when you're asking these questions, because I don't think I think it's okay to ask questions, but just make sure that your questions, one, come from a place of love, and two, come from a place of like wanting to be able to support those people, and not just like, I need you to answer these questions for me because like
I need to feel some kind of
I need to feel better about not understanding this.
Well, one of the
which is why you don't talk to strangers about stuff like this.
Exactly. But one of the most important things that you can do for your child is, listen, you don't have to understand where your child is coming from, and you don't have to agree with it, but that is your child and you have to support.
Right.
And the most important thing that you could ever do for your child, if they're not killing someone, hurting someone, being malicious, and all they're trying to do is find their way, find out who they are, is support.
Mm-hmm.
I had a guest on our show, Tony Ferriolo. He is a transgender man, and he has a support group for very young transgender individuals that he does. And he said something that struck a chord with me a while back, and I've carried with me for as long as I've heard it. And that was that, as a parent, when your child says something to you that takes you out of your comfort, out of your norm, you don't scold your child. You don't tell your child this is wrong. You find a way to deal with that. Go in your room, cry your eyes out, right? Because if that's what you need to do it, you do that in private. And when you come out, you face it head on, and you look at your child and you say, how can I help?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that with me. How can I help? Yeah, that's
because
amazing.
It's the most important thing that you can do, because it tells your child two things. I thought that was going to go a lot worse than it did. Number one, right? Because that's our fear. Oh my God, I'm going to come out to my parents, or I'm going to say that I'm this or I'm that, and she's not going to like it, and she's going to punish me, and blah, blah, blah. No, Mom went in her room. She had her little moment over there. I don't know what happened in there, but she came out and said, how can I help?
Yeah.
And now she's going to try to understand my point of view. And that in itself is probably one of the most important things that you can do for your child who happens to be a member of a community that she or he or they or them may have not even comprehended yet or know. So,
but that not to change the subject or, shift the focus, but that kind of parenting where you don't attack your child, right? It leaves the conversation open, or it leaves the channels open so they always feel that they can come to you. So that's about whatever that's about, whether it's about gender identity and sexuality, or it's about other difficult situations that kids find themselves in. I read there's something that's floating around Facebook a lot. I see it often. This dad was talking about how him and his family and his teen kids had a code. It was a secret code that whenever they find themselves in a bad situation, right? Like, you went to the party knowing there was going to be drinking, but now there's crack. Or maybe you went to the party knowing there was going to be a little bit of drugs, but now someone's convulsing. Whatever the thing is, their code was an X. And so you just had to send an X to the parent, and they would call you back and say, it's kind of like getting out of a date, right? Mm-hmm. Oh my God, there's been an emergency. I have to come and get you, right? So that the point is that the kid is able to save face in the place where they are.
In a social setting,
the kid is able to save space because I'm not leaving here because I feel weirded out by what's going on. I'm leaving because we have a family emergency. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when you pick them up, you're sort of like, hey, are you okay? All right, let's not do that again. And and you kind of move on from it. And you both are under the understanding that, one, thank you for calling me so that I can come and help you get out of this bad situation. And two, you recognize that was a bad situation.
And it instills trust between the child and the parent.
Right.
And our other thing that I wanted to say before we close out is that in being able to sort of kind of walk away in that moment and then come back and say, how can I help? Mm-hmm. It also provides the parent for an opportunity to learn something about themselves mm-hmm. that they never knew they could possibly understand, because it also lets you step back. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we say things.
You just need a breath. Take a minute.
Or do things out of anger or frustration. And sometimes when we step back and we come back at the situation, mm-hmm. we come back at it with new perspective. Mm-hmm. So I think that, it's a good thing to practice.
Yeah. So anyway, that was heavy, but thank you so much for sticking with us, because I think it was an incredibly open, and I'm so grateful to Sharla for allowing me to ask those questions and get an understanding and recognize that, again, it's coming from a place of love and from a place of I want to be able to support her however I can, even though I live across the country. Our group, my extended friend group, matters to me. And if we have a way in this platform to be able to share that information, that's hopefully a few less people that she has to read the rights to when they ask her something
that
stupid.
Is very true.
So anyway, let's do our last thing as we close is our Moms Are Hard tip of the week.
Do it, girl.
And that tip is going to be schedule date night. And when I said that earlier, you were like, "Oh, that seems so
scheduling
clinical."
Sounds so not necessarily so clinical, but so it sounds so forceful, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes, but when you're a parent of multiple children and have been married for a long time, you have to force that shit, or else it's just going to get wiped on. It's just going to get pushed to the back of the line, because so many other things always come up. Because I could say make time for date night, right? Mm-hmm. I could say that. And that's what I mean. But if you don't schedule it, then it's always this idea, right? Like, oh, we should go on a date. Maybe you don't have to have we can't all have a standing date night, but you could schedule something, even if it's only a few times a quarter. I don't know, whatever is the timing that your family can handle right now, put it on the calendar, reach out to whoever you need to come and watch the kids, buy the tickets, do whatever the thing is, even if it's several months in advance, so that, one, you have something to look forward to, and two, you're kind of locked in. because if you don't get like without buying the tickets or like asking, for the babysitter or whoever, then it's very easy to let it just come and go.
Maybe next time.
Let's just watch something on Netflix. Like you kind of fall out of it. And I'll say, like, this was probably our first like legit date night in a very long time, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun.
That's amazing. And you went to see Kevin Hart?
Yeah, we went to see Kevin Hart.
You didn't use your cell phone?
I didn't use my cell phone because I couldn't. And I was laughing at James because I had gotten ready. I'd gotten ready, but I hadn't put on my jacket yet. And he comes out with like a gray leather jacket. I was like, dude, we can't go outside dressed the same. My jacket's leather gray. Your jacket's gray. We both have on Crocs. No, we didn't have on Crocs, but
please tell me you don't wear Crocs anymore.
No, I didn't. But because I'm like, whatever, I wore my LL Bean boots.
That's okay.
Which are my favorite. Those are my favorite boots. And I wore them specifically because I knew that we were going to be parking like you park in a field. And I thought, oh, it's been raining, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to be, I don't know how far away the field is. And I don't want to be trudging through grass and whatnot in nice shoes. And so I'm just going to wear my bean boots because these shits are cool. And I'm going to be breezy prep, which is what my friend Christina calls me.
Breezy prep.
Preppy, but breezy. And so I've got on my leather jacket and my bean boots and I'm chilling. And as we're walking through the parking field, all these women are like wobbling on heels.
Sinking in
heels. And it wasn't even grass. It was gravel. It was like,
oh, that's the worst.
Stone and gravel and loose. And I was just so smitten with myself.
Told you, daddy. This is why I do it.
And the other thing, okay, this is the last thing. So we're at the Kevin Hart, I keep calling it a concert, the show, and his fan group, right? I think it spans a huge, like from maybe young, late teens, I don't know, early 20s to probably 60 years old is his fan base. And so I had the most fun just watching, like 50 to 60-year-old couples who did their own date night to come out and see Kevin Hart. And like the old G is wearing that like that loose silky button-up shirt and the newspaper boy hat and those like baggy, satiny polyester pants, like he's just and it's matching. It's all cream colored. I'm like, where are you people going? But just watching like the old school swag that went to that show was just amazing.
That's awesome.
Amazing. And I watched this couple, they were parking the car and she must, like I can imagine, she said, oh, did you get the keys? Oh, I forgot it in the glove compartment. And he comes back out and she goes, oh, do you have the tickets? Oh shit, I got it. I think it's in my pockets. Oh, and then goes back to the other side of the car. And then he comes back one other time and I swear to God, she said, did you lock the car? And he goes, oh, boop, boop, like he locks the car. But just watching, I was so far away, I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I swear to God, I knew exactly what they were saying.
That's awesome.
And it was just amazing. Like that was the whole show for me before we even got into the Oakdale.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was really,
it's always good. I love people watching. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Was the best. So anyway, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us for this extended show.
Yes.
Again, it's Sunday today, but when you'll hear this, it's Thursday. So I hope you had a good Thursday. And I think we should release it in the morning. Like, ooh, baby, the show's ready Thursday morning.
Oh, you can release it whenever you want.
Anyway.
You can schedule this for whenever.
I know. So anyway, I hope that you have a great Thursday and that you'll join us again in I guess it feels like a couple weeks now because we'll be back.
Well, 2 weeks from now.
We'll be back 2 Thursdays from now.
Yeah.
I guess thank you.
Yeah.
And see you next week. Bye. This show is produced by Tom Ortiz at Digital Stream Radio. It's available for download on Podbean. Follow us at Facebook at Breezy Moms Podcast or email us at breezymomspodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, don't stress, just breathe.